What we call mental health and what we try to address in the psyche via psychology is actually not in the mind at all. It's in the heart and soul.
You're listening to the Science and Spirit of Happy podcast, where we discuss the rational, strategic, and psychological methods, but also the deep reasons and spiritual philosophy behind being happy down to the soul. Happiness isn't just hedonism. It's not even solely personal. Getting happy dramatically increases your effectiveness in every area, from business and finance to relationships. When we align with our own personal version of ideal, we end up not just happier, but healthier, more whole, more successful and richer, but even loving and loved. It's my opinion that getting happy for yourself is the absolute best way to serve the people in your life. I'm your host, Laura Bowers, master healer and academic researcher, and this is another episode diving into
The science and spirit of happy.
a logical path to soul.
Good day, y'all. Welcome back. Oh my gosh, is this an episode or is this going to be an episode? It was so hard to organize this episode. The information that I'm sharing in this episode, it's so important. And this realm of happiness, this realm of, what we call mental health and what we're trying to address with psychology, it is so misunderstood in one hand, but also on the other hand, we are back in the realm of the right brain, which, if you remember from the purpose episode, is very difficult to discuss. It's very difficult to pin down. It's very difficult to separate, all of the different facets of what goes into, something like emotional intelligence, right? When we're diving into the realm of emotions, it gets very difficult to separate different aspects out from how they affect other things, other layers in the body, or other aspects of our life. So I am really going to try to be succinct in this, but it has been such a challenge and such an endeavor to organize what exactly I am going to discuss, because there is so much I could discuss, and I want to discuss it all. Because pretty much everything comes down to self-care, pretty much anything that you want in your life, anything you want you want to make more money, you want to have a better body, you want to have better relationships, you want to be a better parent, you want to be a better person, whatever, anything that you could possibly want is going to come down to self-care and or how you care about yourself, how you go about it. And that is the realm of the heart. And we talked last episode about mindset. And I guess I should just introduce you just a little bit, because I didn't really introduce the sets, what I call the sets, in the last episode, because we're all very aware and familiar with the term mindset and the idea of it. So basically what mindset is sort of kind of a programming that you absorb and reflect upon the world within your mind. So we were talking about lenses last time. So the mindset is, it's kind of like a lens. It's a little bit more involved than that, but it essentially, it's like a filter. It filters everything that you see and experience through a kind of understanding of the world. So mindset directly affects the way that you view things, the way that you think about things, the way that you reflect upon things that are happening to you, and the ways that you're going to go about things that you would like to do, etc. Just everything, right? So there are 4 different sets in my understanding of, the world, of people, of the pursuit of happiness and self-actualization. So the first set is the mindset, which we're aware of. The second set is the heart set. So the heart set is the identical idea as a mindset, right? You've heard at length about, a positive mindset or a negative mindset or a victim mentality, or all of these different kinds of ways that we are interpreting how different an individual could see the world or a specific situation or a specific part of a situation based on that filter of their mindset. The same is true of your emotional world, the layer of yourself that is emotions. You have a heart set. You have a set of programming, an emotional understanding of the world, of relationships, individual people, how humans behave, etc. And everything that you experience emotionally gets filtered through this set. And in the next 2 episodes, I'll talk about the next sets, the soul set and the body set. So whereas mindset dramatically influences how you think about things, heart set directly influences how you feel about things. And this is, I am illustrating right now, if you are watching on YouTube, I am illustrating right now how old school my research is, because I've got a piece of paper in my hand that I am going to read off the different things that heart set influences. Because this is the way people used to have to do research. They used to have to actually write things down on paper. So the emotional center, your heart set, it rules communication, the way that you express yourself, your sense of responsibility, honesty, love, compassion, safety, trust, even adventure, and definitely forgiveness. So it's really difficult to whittle down what I'm going to talk about today because, well, 2 reasons. Because it's so important, but it's also, in our day and age, it is so much more important because, well, I have expressed before that I think we're at a stage where we're starting to really value the heart set and your soul set, so your emotional well-being and your spiritual wellness, but also because of how untapped this power is, and therefore how kind of wild and unknown and mysterious this realm of emotions really is. And the less we know about something that is as important as our emotional well-being is, the more we need to really learn about it. What we call mental health these days, in my understanding, is more heart and soul than anything else. It doesn't have a ton to do with the mind. We try to address these issues with psychology, and to date, the efficacy has been very far below what we would desire, to say it nicely. I don't want to get down on psychology. I have used traditional psychological means, and I study research that psychologists do on a regular basis. I am so indebted to modern psychology. I try not to get too down on it, but we definitely need a fresh perspective, because trying to address issues of the heart and the spirit solely through psychological means, through the psyche, is well, I mean, it could be good if we understood the heart and the spirit. So if we understand the heart and the spirit, then yeah, absolutely, we're going to go to the control room, the mind, to gain access to it. So there's probably a really good reason why we've been focusing on the psyche. But in saying that, we really do need to develop the understanding of what's actually going on, that this isn't mental health we're talking about. We're talking about emotional health, and we need to use our minds to dive into how we're feeling, what we're feeling, and gain wisdom to be able to, well, I guess I'm just going to throw it out there. The $1 million word of the day, regulate. And I will get into a little bit about regulation as we go on. But first and foremost, I really wanted to kind of take a peek at what we're calling emotional intelligence right now, because as we're totally familiar with the term mindset and the concept, we are also familiar with the concept of emotional intelligence, right? That this is coming to the fore. This is becoming something that is understood. They're looking at data. When we look at data of, having success on the job, having vocational success, we're finding that what we quantify as emotional intelligence has more standing in how successful we'll become than the traditional intelligence quotient, so the traditional IQ. So people are diving into emotional intelligence and trying to decipher, what it is, how we get it, etc. So I wanted to dive into what researchers in psychology, or what we are, colloquially terming or deeming emotional intelligence. And I expected that I would find empathy and emotional regulation. These are the things that I would assume. These are what I intuitively would think that society would attribute to emotional intelligence. So what I found was sort of 5 characteristics, I guess I'm going to say, or skills that determine emotional intelligence. And they were self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So when I look at self-awareness, my first reaction to that is that that's really mental. So trying to be kind of generous, you need the mind to be aware of your emotional reactions to things. So self-awareness, being aware of your emotions could absolutely be, inextricably linked to emotional intelligence. But when I look at that, this idea of self-awareness, it begs the question, of what? We all have different awarenesses. We all have different strengths too. Most of our consciousnesses, that's a funny word. Most of our consciousnesses lie predominantly in one of the sets. Mine is in energy. So next episode is going to be really interesting when I discuss SoulSet with you guys. But that trope of the dumb jock, I think that is more an illustration that a lot of people who are athletically gifted or athletically inclined, they're interested in athletics to the point of, making it a major priority in their life, their consciousness, their kind of awareness could quite possibly be predominantly in the body set. Or the trope of the brainy nerd, that is like a weakling and is the opposite of athletic. It's not that any of those tropes are true. It's just that, all of us have certain, percentages, certain strengths and other weaknesses when it comes to where our energy goes and comes from. So when I see self-awareness on, a requirement for emotional intelligence, I would say, yeah, that's definitely true. But also, that's not necessarily a facet of HeartSet, of, the emotion system. The next one, self-regulation. I mean, what in the heck? Self-regulation. Okay, what does this mean? We're talking a lot about nervous system regulation, which is in the soul set, that is in the realm of energy. But like self-regulation, this is the mind. This is executive function, right? Motivation. I was trying to understand how this plays in to emotional intelligence, and I read on Harvard they were talking about internal motivation. And I mean, yeah, okay, I guess that can sort of, motivation could be in the heart set. Absolutely. It's more an energy center thing, but empathy, absolutely. Now we're in the realm of the emotion systems, absolutely. And social skills. So when I think of social skills, I would have to make that into a whole self thing. Mind, heart, and spirit at the very least. But I mean, it could lean towards the heart set for sure. Relationships and love and care definitely does. So the next step, I looked at the signs of emotional intelligence. So I'm just trying to illustrate a little bit of like how convoluted the information and our understanding of emotional intelligence is. The signs of EI that I was able to find across the board were an ability to identify and describe what people are feeling. So, I mean, yes, this has an aspect of empathy, but this also has to go to your like executive function. Be able to identify and describe that is not emotions, that is not empathy, that is your cognitive ability. Okay, I had to actually just take a little break here because going through the signs of emotional intelligence that I found on the internet and explaining what they actually are is making me feel absolutely bananas. Like I almost cried because I don't want to talk about this stuff at all. It's like how we understand things is so convoluted. It is already so much effort for me to take these things that are massive and all encompassing and separate them out and explain them to people. Going through how other people think about these things is like overwhelming, I guess, a little bit. I'm going to try and run through the signs of emotional intelligence that I have found and what I think that they actually are. So just bear with me if I sound robotic because I'm not into this at all. Like I'm not into this at all. I'm not into looking at like what's wrong with things. I just want to talk about what's right. I gotta get there. So here we go. An ability to identify and describe what people are feeling. Yes, this is empathy, but this is also your executive function too. Language is separate, is not part of the heart. An awareness of personal strengths and limitations, self-awareness. Again, this has to do with self-discovery, which has to do with, with the mind again, and humbleness. Humbleness is probably more a soul set thing. Yeah, definitely. It's more a soul set thing. You'll understand why I say that in a few moments. Self-confidence and self-acceptance. No, that is soul set. Absolutely. The ability to let go of mistakes. Yeah, sure. Forgiveness. Also probably processing. No, I'm gonna say that is heart set. Yeah, we're gonna go forgiveness. An ability to accept and embrace change. That is a growth mindset. Has an emotional element for sure, but I mean, everything is life is all mixed up between the layers, between the sets anyhow. A strong sense of curiosity, particularly about other people. I mean, yeah, okay. Yes, yes, I'll give you that one. That is heart set. Feelings of empathy and concern for others, absolutely. Showing sensitivity to the feelings of other people, yes, 100%. Accepting responsibilities for mistakes, that's integrity, that's in the soul set, and connection in the mind. The ability to manage emotions in difficult situations is your whole body. I made it. Okay, this is why I said that I laughed at humbleness being a sign of emotional intelligence. You can't control emotions. So, all of this talk about self regulation, too, is just like bizarre to me. When you're talking about regulating your emotions, emotions can't be regulated. I'll say that again for the people in the back. Emotions can't be regulated. They're pure. You're having weird emotional reactions that you don't want to have. They're reacting to something that is stuck in you, stuck on you, stuck in your environment, and they keep happening because it hasn't been addressed. The emotions are not the problem. The emotions are telling you exactly what's happening. Not listening is the problem. Emotions are true. They're always true. They are, again, for the people in the back, for the people who've been gaslit all their lives. Your emotions are true. Flat out. Nobody can argue with them. They're true. They're you. They're you. They're pure. They're true. They're you. They're not supposed to be controlled. Again, for the people way in the back, for the women who have been told to control themselves their whole lives, I'm gonna lose it. Emotions are not supposed to be controlled. There's no regulating them. That's a nervous system thing. That's a way that you deal with things that are happening. That's a way that you deal with things that are challenging. Your emotions, their job is to tell you that there's a challenge, tell you that you don't like something, tell you that you really like something else. Everything else, our sense of justice, of fairness, of what we should and shouldn't do, these are all coming from completely different places. So all of the different sets, they have what I call personal powers. So when we're talking about mindset, the personal powers of mindset are clarity and connection. The personal powers of the heart set of your emotional intelligence quotient are fierceness. So the courageousness, like in Brené Brown was explaining in one of her talks, that she looked up the Latin root word for courageous, which is cur, which cur is still the French word for heart, but the root words for courage were to tell your story with your whole heart. So fierceness really is the courage to tell your story with your whole heart. And when I heard Brené Brown say that, I assumed she meant like the narrative of like your past and how you ended up here as being your story. But now I understand it in that your story is whatever way you are feeling, whatever way you are processing, whatever way you are reacting to things in the moment, as much as it is, things that happened in the past. So fierceness is the ability to feel how you feel fully, truly, without trying to control it. Yeah. And the next personal power is freedom. So after having developed the fierceness to feel how you feel fully, truly, purely, the next personal power of the emotion system is the freedom to act and react accordingly. So when you're trying to think about whether, the way that you want to behave is the way that you should behave, or, whether or not this is fair, etc., these all fall under the realm of different aspects of yourself. And just to be clear, when we're talking about triggers, what we call triggers, being triggered into feeling emotions, the trigger is not really emotional. The emotional reaction is still true, it's still pure, it's still very, very real. The triggering is actually more of a soul set thing. It's more of even a mind thing. It's more, or even a body thing than it is emotions. The emotions that come from being triggered are just illuminating the message again, just telling you your story kind of again. The emotions that arise are actually, they're just signaling that, this trauma is still kind of in your body, in your nervous system, etc. So the triggering isn't actually an emotional thing. Emotions are fresh and new every time that you feel them. Even if you felt them a million times before, it's coming from somewhere else. The emotional messenger is brand new every single time. Is this important or is this semantics? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So emotions are made to be felt. If you're being triggered and you have, bad emotions about it, or I don't know if you're being triggered and you have good emotions about it, whatever emotions you are having, they're made to be felt and accepted, period, because they are real. They're real. The way that you feel about that trauma, it's real. Somebody else brought it up, or some other situation brought it up, and it wasn't, their fault, or, it isn't an appropriate situation for you to react the way that you would react, or you should react, or you would want to react in, the trauma situation. All of that stuff, all of those decisions, all of that thinking, all of that deciding, that lays in the realm of mind. That isn't for the emotions. The emotions don't need to be like blotted down. It's not the emotions that are the issue. And in fact, like letting those emotions out and accepting them will lead you to the problem, and then you can address it. This is not semantics. This is very, very, very important divisions and allocations that we need to make. In my experience, the force of being in touch with other people's emotions, that sense of empathy, is natural once you are in touch with the emotions that you feel yourself. So empathy is not typically something that you really need to work on. It is more an internal kind of skill set that's acquired within first. So when you really begin to feel your emotions, and granted, you've moved into emotional maturity and you're not suffering with, trauma that is creating like abnormal psychology or like narcissism or not. I don't know if I have the strength or the time to discuss narcissism with you at length, but I am going to briefly touch on it a little bit later. But barring those situations where you've been launched into an abnormal psychology, an abnormal, which is more abnormal, spiritual and emotional wellness. But barring the situation where you've been launched into abnormal psychology, and honestly, maybe not even then. I really, this is how difficult things are for me, because I could talk about everything. Abnormal psychology, a lot of things I believe, and in my experience dealing with people who are absolutely diagnosed and absolutely suffering with abnormal psychology, not just a-holes or whatever. This comes from trauma and getting in touch with, the genuine way that you feel, the genuine way that you think, the genuine, person that you would want to be, and all of the dents and deficits that you have acquired over your life. I touched on this a little bit in the mindset episode on the reality IQ dents and deficits. You can get dents and deficits on every layer. But if you have acquired a bunch of these and then gone into a deficiency, I mentioned as well, I think that this is where mental health issues or mental illness anyways, a lot of abnormal psychology in the realm of mental illness, I believe, comes from actually mental deficiencies, so reality IQ deficiencies, emotional IQ deficiencies, IIQ deficiencies we're going to discuss next time, and even somatic IQ deficiencies. So even in that situation, I think that getting in touch with how you genuinely feel could help dramatically. It's also worthwhile to mention that I think that emotional IQ dents and deficits are probably more prevalent. I mean, they probably are more prevalent because I feel like they are more mysterious and therefore would probably be less likely to be healed than many of the other forms of dents and deficits that we can accumulate throughout our lives. So just to recap, if you forget, I cover a lot of stuff in all of my podcasts. If you forget or you didn't listen to the last podcast, dents and deficits are little damages to your filter. So your emotional IQ, in my understanding of it, is how clearly you are able to see, feel, and think about your emotions. So emotional IQ dents are when someone has made you feel bad for having your feelings, or someone has made you try to control your feelings, try to reduce them, try to put them into different places, try to make them express themselves differently, try to make you not have them. Anytime someone has told you that, you're a bad person or you're doing something wrong for feeling the way that you do, all of these things become dents in your ability to feel clearly. So when you start, you're clear. My little baby boy, he does not think anything about showing me exactly how he feels, or conversely feeling the way that he feels. He doesn't think about it. This is clear to him. He's sad, that's it. He's happy, that's it. He doesn't, sometimes I'll be like so upset and he's like, yeah, mama, and he's so happy, and like he just feels happy. Like, that is pure and clear, and he trusts the way that he feels as being true and pure and right and all of those things. Now, in a few years' time, that same child, not my child, but that same child. All of us were children, right? All of us were exactly like this when we were his age, or, at least when we were born, before we started accumulating these dents and damages. But given enough time, if that child is then, you know, made to feel bad because they're happy, or he's made to feel that he should feel sad, or he is made to feel that his feelings aren't legit. If you have been raised, especially with parents who tend towards, I guess we're calling it emotional immaturity now, but I think we're trying to get away from like calling them narcissists. But if you've been raised by parents who tend towards narcissistic behaviors, or are emotionally immature, a lot of the times you will have reacted to them in some kind of a negative way, and parents will like shame you for the reaction, or tell you. A lot of the time narcissists do this. They'll tell you very, very plainly and in your face, very aggressively sometimes, that your reaction is the problem. So it's you who's behaving badly. It's your feelings that are the problem, that you taking offense, for instance, is offensive. It translates to you having a problem with someone hurting you, and addressing it is you hurting someone else, and therefore you're a bad person. Anyways, I don't make the rules. It doesn't make any sense to me either. But this stuff happens all the time. I could go for ages talking about all of the crappy things that people do to other people. But pretty much every single one of us would walk down a street, and if we see somebody hurting, it hurts us. So this is our natural state. Our natural state is empathetic. Our natural state is compassionate. Our natural state is not wanting to hurt other people. So if you've been around people who hurt you and then tell you that they didn't hurt you, or that you can't be hurt, you're not allowed to be hurt, or that your hurt is actually hurtful, they're suffering with probably what I call an emotional IQ deficiency. So that's a big D. We're past dents and deficits. It's a big D. The way someone gets there, the way that we get to this deficiency, is by starting pure baby. I feel what I feel, and I'm gonna share it, to being, dented. Oh, the way that I feel isn't true, or it isn't pure, or it shouldn't be me. That's not me. If you're kind of mentally or emotionally manipulated to think that a good person does something different. A good person does not, scream and yell when they aren't being listened to. If you identify with being a good person, and then therefore you see this wanting to raise your voice when you are not being heard, you see this as something that is not aligned with you, right? Because you're a good person, and good people don't do that. You're a nice person, and nice people don't do that. You don't want to hurt people, and therefore you don't do that. That dent ends up kind of twisting the way that you feel about things, or it twists the path, at least. And at first, you'll really feel just like the reality IQ, clarity. You'll really feel like, I'm justified. No, like you weren't listening to me. But, mama, papa, like, I just wanted you to hear me. I was trying to tell you that I didn't want that, or I wanted this, and you weren't listening, and you were mistreating me, and I was being hurt, and I needed to be heard, and therefore I raised my voice. That was okay. That was me being clear. My emotions are true. My emotions are pure. My emotions are me. And the way that I feel is real. You will feel an injustice at being told that isn't true. It isn't real. You shouldn't do that. But in time, if you are not allowed the space to heal, if you are not given the space, if somebody doesn't come back to you and say, hey, I'm sorry, like, I understand that, you were angry or you were hurt and you just wanted, us to listen to you. And so you raised your voice, and maybe that wasn't the best way to do things. And I'm going to try to listen to you more next time. If you can try to, maybe like give me this keyword if you think I'm not listening, so that like I can try to listen to you, so we don't have to, be hurtful to one another. If someone doesn't give you that space, if someone doesn't validate that the way that you saw things, the way that you felt was legitimate, this develops into a deficit. The difference between a dent and a dent is a temporary thing, which given enough space, it'll go away and you'll feel clearly again. You'll be able to feel through that lens clearly again. Your heart set will clarify. You'll feel the way that you feel, and that will be that. The deficit is when the dent becomes kind of semi-permanent. So you are actually reinforcing the dent yourself. The damage has gone so far that you're actually doing things to keep the dent in place. So we have tools in our minds that we use to regulate things. One of them that I call the self-talk tool, you'll be familiar with. It's the voice in your head. It's the superego and the Freudian kind of understanding of things. And that's one of the ways it's jacked up with these pre-recorded messages that will reel you into what, societal expectations, etc. are. And there's nothing inherently wrong with this. It's all about the programming when we're talking about whether this is helpful or harmful. So we have all kinds of different ways. The self-talk tool is one of them, of kind of reinforcing the dents to turn them into deficits, or creating space for those dents to heal. And this is largely contingent on what your parents treated you like, or what society, what the social and cultural beliefs that you grew up around are. And you can reprogram them. Absolutely. This is part of what I do. There's a lot of stuff I do. There are so many layers. I am trying so hard to stay on topic with this one, because there's so many things that you can do. And I am teaching full courses on every single one of the episodes in season 1. And I'm actually a little bit scared of this one, because I was looking at all of the material and thinking about all of the things that I could teach, and like, wow, this one is probably going to be a doozy. Anyhow, you can absolutely heal these dents. It's actually quite natural. It's the most natural thing in the world. It heals just like a scratch on your skin would heal, given, the right circumstances. It's actually quite hard to keep going. An emotional IQ deficiency is when it's gone so far that you don't have touch with the clarity anymore, which is what I was saying. The deficiencies in my theory, I believe, are the kind of the bedrock to mental illness. Anywho, I don't like to talk about that stuff. I'm too sensitive today. So, emotional IQ, like base reality for emotional IQ. So EIQ 0, base emotional reality, is, if you remember in the RIQ 0, the base reality, you remember in the mindset episode that it's totally objective, right? It's this objective way of seeing things, that you can get to the capital T truth of what is going on. You look at base reality, the objective truth. Well, in the emotion center, so your emotional IQ, your base reality for EIQ, is entirely subjective. That's right. So it is totally subjective. It is completely up to you. Your emotions, again, I'll say it for the fourth or fifth time, they're pure, they're true, they are real, they are you. And this is so important. Emotional IQ is so important. This whole series, we're talking about going from like zero to hero in this series. So going from being stuck to making your dream life a reality, going from being depressed to being fulfilled. And the reason emotional IQ is so important is because, well, it's not just because you actually experience what we attribute to like happiness, like real fulfillment, that most of those things are actually experiences of the heart and soul. They're not really mind body so much, even if you're talking about physical things that you want to achieve, like, you know, getting fit or having a bunch of money, having that great house, driving that really comfy car. It really isn't about the stuff at all. It's about the way that they make you feel emotionally and energetically. So emotional IQ is so, so important. And when we're talking about the things that we're talking about this season, if you look at things like depression we discussed as being a sense of stuckness, right? Well, that's no freedom. Remember the personal powers, right? The personal powers are fierceness and freedom. When we're talking about, you know, judgment being critical, it's such a harbinger of discontent. I can't even get into what judgment is. I think I'm going to do an episode on it next season, though, or some other season. Definitely. Because judgment is actually defensiveness. Being judgmental and critical is actually defensiveness. Again, that's no freedom. You're on the defense right away. You are not free. You are feeling like you need to fight all the time. You know, sarcasm, people pleasing, social anxiety, all that stuff is no fierceness. Somebody's trying to get their point across using sarcasm. I get it. Sometimes it happens to me too. You know, sometimes I get sarcastic when I feel like the thing that is being said or insinuated to me is so ludicrously, you know, hurtful or silly or just offensive that I get sarcastic. And that's a sign of not being able to say the thing that I feel, because I don't know why. Maybe I'll have to just dive into that myself. But people pleasing, you know, not like wanting somebody else to be just happy with whatever instead of you feeling happy with whatever. That is no fierceness. Social anxiety, of course, you know, no fierceness. And this stuff, guys, I'm trying not to say guys. This stuff, y'all, is it's not conducive to good relationships. Ironically enough, people pleasing does not please anybody. All that anybody wants is for you to be yourself. And when you have social anxiety, man, I have never met more rude people than people who suffer from social anxiety. Like, this is not conducive to being awesome or even cool or even just not offensive. Like fierceness, you think that fierceness, right? You think of being fiercely self-expressive as being something that it would be like threatening, right? No, it's not. The opposite is actually true. And somebody who is threatened by, you know, honesty, especially when it's tempered honesty that is actually balanced with, you know, empathy, which naturally comes if you care about the way that you feel. You inherently care about the way that other people feel. So, you know, your fierceness, it really shouldn't be scary at all. And when somebody is scared of it, I mean, I could get into why that could be, but I don't think I have the emotional bandwidth today or the time. But we can leave it with, you know, saying that like hurt people hurt people. You've heard that saying before. And you might have even heard the saying that healed people heal people. But empowered people, they empower other people. So let's just leave it at, if somebody is afraid of your fierceness, they are not experiencing fierceness, because empowered people empower people. Anywho, I looked into some recent research, was really, really cool to see. If you are maybe the very sciencey type, again, for lack of a better word or a real word, if you are the left-brained, strategic, linear thinker who's like, emotional IQ, I mean, I don't really see the sense in it. Recent study associated all of the HeartSet strengths with intelligence and mental faculties. That's right. So actually, when I looked at what they were looking at, how they were quantifying their personality traits, the big 5 personality framework that they were using, I looked at the traits and like 3 or 4 out of 5 of them related directly to HeartSet. And guess what? All of the traits that related to HeartSet were positively correlated with cognitive ability. That is right. So empathy and compassion were associated with intelligence. Depression and neuroticism or anxiety were correlated with a lack of intelligence. In that same study, they found that agreeableness and politeness were not associated with cognitive ability. They were negatively associated with cognitive ability and intelligence. So these ways that we have been taught to be nice, they're not only not nice, as I was explaining before, they're also they're damaging our ability to be successful in other ways as well. So these things that I'm talking about, having emotional intelligence, again, we discussed how the data has shown that it's more positively correlated with employment success, with financial success, etc., than is, an intelligent quotient. But it's also like they're showing that these things are directly linked to being able to think, which makes complete sense to me, because all of this stuff is linked, right? Your heart is linked to your head. Your soul is linked to your heart, is linked to your head. Your body is linked to, your soul is linked to your heart, is linked to your head. And these things all work together. So the way that we become brilliant, whether you want to look at that as being very intelligent or being a shining, brilliant light. If you want to be brilliant, if you want to be fulfilled, every single one of these aspects must be developed. None of them are inconsequential. Absolutely none. Every single one of them, your mind, heart, spirit, and body, they are all equally important in your pursuit of happiness, fulfillment, and attainment. So emotional intelligence is, it is all about you. That's how it starts, at least, because in the realm of emotions, it is our nature to care about other people. You don't have to focus on that in that realm. In the mind, in the body, these other areas, you might have to give, get some, acumen to actually focus on other people. But in the heart, you don't need to stress about that. A high emotional IQ is the place you want to be to enjoy a rich inner life, to feel loving and kind, which isn't just about other people. Feeling loving and kind, being kind, participating in acts of kindness, that feels phenomenal to us, as well as being loved. and belonging in close relationships, belonging in close loving friendships, familial and romantic relationships. Belonging in the community is more of a body set in the physical presence realm. But belonging intimately to people, that is part of a high emotional IQ. Having all of your needs met, being able to communicate your needs and how you feel, express yourself excellently. It feels really, really good. And it creates the experience of good feelings. It also facilitates good energy, which is part of SoulSet, which is part of your energetic frequency, the energetic realm, which we're gonna discuss next episode. It positively impacts your frame of mind. So it feeds into mindset and it supports a holistic wellness of yourself. And this includes others. Remember when I discussed at the beginning that everything that you want to do comes down to self-care. Everything. Anything that you want to achieve, how well you care about yourself is absolutely not just the foundation, but the actual mechanisms of how you go about achieving that. I mentioned too that I would talk briefly about narcissism, which is a lack of empathy. But narcissism is not self-serving. We often attribute narcissism and acting narcissistically to self-absorption. But if we take these definitions at face value, acting narcissistically isn't really in anyone's best interest, and it really isn't genuinely what's going to make anyone feel good. So I really want you to break the connection between self-absorption and self-interest from the concept of narcissism or acting narcissistically. Because if you're healing, self-absorption is something you absolutely need to do. And as I've been explaining, the more that you open yourself to this inner world, the more that you get self-absorbed into your emotions, into your feelings, into your desires, into your own healing, the more you're able to empathize with other people, the more you're able to share good feelings with other people, to connect with other people in deeper and more meaningful ways. So the easiest way to help the emotions system and the HeartSet is to reprogram your self-talk tool as the nurturing, supportive parent slash protector. And we can do this really strategically through mindset. And I'm going to teach how we do that in the courseware that goes along with this season. So you can get that by following the links, wherever links are, wherever you are listening or watching this. And tune in next time when we're going to talk about the ego tool and SoulSet and intuition and the energetic frequency realm of your happiness, life, direction, etc. And I feel like I've been a little bit cantankerous today. I don't know what it is. It's kind of, I was thinking it's ironic that I'm talking about HeartSet and I'm talking about, love and compassion and care and all of these things that we associate with, lovingness and heart and emotions and feeling. And I'm feeling super cantankerous about it. But in the same breath, now that I've gone through this, I feel like maybe this is my way of, being honest and being aligned with my fierceness and having the freedom to like show up however I am today, however I am feeling. And I hope that you can accept that. Till next time, good day, y'all.